Hey everybody, Shawn Holsinger here from holsingersflyshop.com. Bringing another tie-in video this week, and it's a caddis pattern this week. Another nymph, and it's from a book that I actually picked up. Last week I was tying at the symposium, and I picked up Favorite Flies for Pennsylvania by Eric Naguski. Really great book. I suggest getting this book. It doesn't give you step-by-steps, but it gives you a lot of pattern ideas. And I'm probably going to be sharing a couple other patterns out of this book at some other point in time. But in this book, Eric calls it a Czech nymph, and it is. By all means, it is a Czech nymph style pattern. But Czech nymph is kind of a broad term, and Czech nymphs can imitate caddis patterns, scuds, sow-bugs. There's a broad range that a Czech nymph can imitate. And for this one, I'm actually trying to imitate a free-living caddis. So that's what we're going to call this one. We're going to call it the free-living caddis. We have a ton of these in my area. If you flip over a rock, you see a little green worm with a black head. In my area, that's the most popular color. So that's what I'm going to imitate here. You see these all the time. The other option is, of course, a cased caddis, which sometimes they'll use stones, sticks, or pieces of bark or whatever to build their casing out of. Really cool. The caddis insect is a really cool and very important part of a trout's diet, at least here on my area of the East Coast. So, and anyway, enough talking about it. Let's get into tying it here. I'm going to show you a picture of it, then the material list to tie it. Okay, here you see the free-living caddis in the vise. Very easy pattern to tie, and a realistic looking one too. So let's get into tying it. For a hook, I'm using a Daiichi 1120, and this is a size 10. Definitely tie it smaller. For a bead, we're using a Firehole. This is a tungsten bead, 3.5 millimeter, and I'm using the color black. Next, I'm going to put on some lead. And for lead, I'm using 0.015 just to give it a little bit of body, hold that bead in place, and spin that the rest of the way around there. There we go. Now, for thread, I'm using some 140 Denier rusty brown. You can use brown, whatever, black would work great too. We're just going to start that on there, lock that lead in place, and then I'm going to add the ribbing for my fly, which is going to be some Brassie sized UTC wire, ultra wire in black. I'm just going to wrap that on and wrap it slightly around the bend of the hook, and then I'm going to smooth out my transition from my wire down to my lead. Going to build it up with a little bit of thread here and just make a nice smooth transition. Don't get it too big. You don't want to go over, you don't want to get real thick on this. Next thing we're going to use is some SLF Squirrel dub. This is green olive. You can go darker or lighter on your olive colors. You can go with black if you want. Whatever you want. There's a lot of like rockworms and stuff in my area. A lot of green colored caddis. That's why I'm using the darker olive caddis color here. So I'm just going to start this on here. And I'm going to wrap this right up the hook. Now I don't want to make it too thick. And I want to wrap about a bead length, bead's distance behind the bead. And that's where I'm going to stop. Then I'm going to add the collar on this, which is going to be some chocolate brown Prism, SLF Prism. So just going to get that on there nice and tight. Slide it up to my fly. And make a nice little collar here. Tighten that up just a hair. There we go. Just now you see how that's all nice and smooth. My collar's not bigger than, my thorax isn't bigger than my abdomen or vice versa. Just all nice smooth transition in there. So now we're going to put the back on this fly, and for the back I'm using some Antron yarn, and this is dark brown. And I'm going to set it on right behind that bead. And you can do this a little bit long. We're going to tie it in right behind that bead there. And then I'm just going to shorten it up. Just keep pulling it right to where I pinched that Antron yarn and get it locked in place there nice and tight. Then we're going to hold this down well, for starters, I'm going to get 1/2 a wrap started with my black ultra wire here. And this is going to be the ribbing and what's going to hold that Antron yarn in place. So I'm just going to make sure I keep that Antron yarn centered on the top. And then make nice not side by side, but nice evenly spaced wraps to make the ribbing on this. And then we're going to get right up in there behind that bead. Tie it off. Do a couple twists on there and that'll pop right off. And then I like to add just a touch more of this chocolate brown. Not a whole lot, just enough to cover up my thread wraps, give it something to sink into. Make a nice little finish color on there, and then we're going to whip finish. There we go. Okay, now we put that Antron yarn down the back, and we did it going off the back for a reason, because we're going to use this as a tail. So I'm going to go, I'm going to follow right off the bend of the hook, straight up from there. I'm just going to trim that off and make a nice little tail on the back there. So there you see they have like a little pincher that they can grab onto the rocks with and stuff, and that's what that represents. So easy little tie, not hard at all, pretty quick one too. So. Alright guys, I hope you like that pattern. It's a really simple one to tie. And, you know, flies that you don't take long to tie, like this one, 3 or 4 minutes, you tend to fish a little bit harder. And it's a natural looking insect, so it's a perfect one. You know, I don't worry about, if I'm out fishing and I don't have a lot of time invested in a fly, I'm not going to worry about losing it as much. And I tend to fish it a lot harder. We'll cast into tighter areas, and all that kind of stuff helps lead to catching more fish. So anyways guys, like always, change the color of this fly. You know, get out there in the stream, lift up them rocks, see what the bugs are crawling around under the rocks. You're going to see free-living caddis there, especially if you're here on the East Coast. Like I said earlier, my area, it's a lot of greens. There's a lot of green colored ones, some gray ones. So mess around with your colors. And definitely downsize. The size 10 here that I tied in this video, this Daiichi 1120, it's not a really big hook even in the size 10, so it's not that bad. It's not real big, but it is big for my area. So I'm using this more of an anchor fly in the size 10. Definitely tie it smaller. You know, it's a lot easier for me to tie in the video on a bigger size hook because it shows up a lot better. So downsize, change your colors. Have fun tying. That's what I always say, and experiment, guys. Have fun experimenting. Any of the materials you need to tie it, like always, you can find them on our website at holsingersflyshop.com. And feel free to reach out to me if you would like me to tie some of these for you, or if you have any questions. You can do that by emailing me at holsingersflyshop@gmail.com. So thanks for watching, guys. Until I bring you another video next week, I'm Shawn Holsinger.